we need to send back 12 ambassadors for India. And I can tell you, all 12 of them have gone back saying, oh my God, what an experience.
So your secret of success was perseverance and your commitment to the long-term future rather than short-term gains.
Yeah, and patience. We talk about fuels. We didn't just come and said we want to set up petrol stations. It was more about, we said it's got to be a mobility solution center.
Global energy giant BP PLC just held its board meeting in India. This is the second time that BP has convened this important meeting in our country. Today we have with us India head of BP, Sashi Mukundan, to talk about the relevance of the meeting and the importance of India as a market hold for BP. In a planned transition, Mr. Mukundan is stepping down as head of BP after 43 years with the company, the last 13 years as the head of BP for India. As he prepares to leave after an illustrious career, we will ask Mr. Mukundan about his journey at BP and also the company's future plans and strategies. Mr. Mukundan, welcome to PTI and to our show at 4 Parliament Street. I'll start off by asking you about your recently concluded board meeting. It's only the second time that BP has held its board meeting in India. The last time was 2013.
That's right.
So what was the reason behind holding it in India? What's the messaging that you're trying to send here?
So this is a very interesting question you're asking, because the same question was asked by the minister as well as Mr. Ambani, because we had dinners with both of them. And what I told them was, these are distinguished foreign dignitaries who are coming to India as part of BP's board. So what I told them is what's important is that we need to send back 12 ambassadors for India going back. Because it's important, the business they know what we have done in India. The success we have had is what brings them here, because they recognize the ability to create much more in India. For me, it was very important that we needed to showcase India for them, and I can tell you, all 12 of them have gone back saying, "Oh my God, what an experience!" So that was the main reason for bringing them in here, because now when we take projects to them, when we take ideas to them, they can understand that
they can connect the situation in India to the project. So it was your idea to have this in India, the board meeting in India?
We have been talking about this. I've been talking about this and saying, we need to bring the board into India. And for me, before I stepped down, I said, this is a fantastic opportunity to have them come out. What way to finish by having the board in India and, having the board meeting and then.
India hasn't had too many global giants here. We have had Enron, which went into bankruptcy. There was Chevron, but that also went out very quickly. Petrobras, ExxonMobil, Statoil, they all went out. So what exactly worked for BP? You have $12 billion of investment here. I don't know what your turnover is, but so what is it that worked for BP but did not work for other companies?
So for us, when we started, we were very clear what we wanted to do was to firstly understand what are the needs and wants of India. And if you look at the things we have done, everything has been working towards what the country was looking for. If you remember, there was a huge push to get companies to come and look at exploration and production. Many people were reluctant. There were various issues that were there. But, we were very clear, this is an area and, this is an area we are good at. Let's come in and look at it. But let's pick a partner with whom we can work and, who will help us, navigate together. And that was one reason, right? Same thing goes with fuels. When we talk about fuels, we didn't just come and said we want to set up petrol stations. It was more about, we said it's got to be a mobility solution center, which means we're going to bring fuels, which is international grade. So if you look at our petrol and diesel, these are, international grade ones, which are actually giving you more mileage, but at the same price. So it's affordable, but at the same time, it's the highest quality. Same thing, convenience. We've put convenience stores, which we call wild bean cafes. Now, these cafes are 100% Indianized. So there's nothing that's imported. Even our coffee beans are done here. It's a Chikmagalur bean that they process, and it's become a big hit. So if you look at it, everything has been that way. That's how we've grown. EV charging, another area. We just hit a milestone this week where we just commissioned the 5,000th one. So, and then we're bringing more AI and digital. So if you look at it, it's all working towards what the country is looking at. And I'll give you a little bit of thought process. We are also looking at energy and biogas. And the reason we haven't gone full blast into it is because we're trying to mature the technology. We have technology in the US, we have technology in Brazil. Brazil, we are second largest producer of ethanol and sugarcane. So there again, we're taking those technologies that we have. We've got a company in the US that does biogas called Archaea. They have technology. And then we've got a bioscience center in San Diego. So we're going to bring those things together. And then we're now saying, okay, how do we take that to India? What kind of crops can work in India in an arid, slightly saline, locations? How do we, better the residence time of the stuff in the digester? So the quicker we can get it out and the more gas we can produce, it's better. So, so these are the kind of things we're looking and trying to work with the government.
Which the other companies failed to do?
I don't know. I think our biggest strength was we had the patience, and I had the management support who was very patient, saying, Sashi, we are here for the long term, and we need to work it. And what I realized was, the more you actually sit face to face and you explain how do you go about, and why is this difficult? Why is it, different? And then, slowly we were able to prove ourselves, right? And then once we committed certain things, we delivered it.
So your secret of success was perseverance and your commitment to the long-term future rather than short-term gains.
Yeah, and patience.
And patience, yeah.
Sashi, you have had a long journey at the BP, 13 years as its head in India. So what were the high points of your career and what were the major challenges? Are there any situations where you think you could have done better? And what's the legacy you're leaving behind?
Okay, so I've been with the company 43 years, right? I just turned, the 43rd year got done on 16th of September. And I started in the US, 20 years there, and there was a planning study that happened in the 1990s where we were looking at how do we expand in the globe, where do we look at and what do we do? And one of the things that came out was, India, China, Brazil, the usual ones are the places that you need to invest in. And at that point, I had this thing saying, we need to do something in India because everybody was running to China at that point. And so I made that call. I said, I want to come to India. So in 2000, I told my wife, we're going to go to India for 2 years. Let's go for 2 years and then let's see what happens. And then rest is history, right? And honestly, today I tell everybody, my best years of that 43 years is the 23 years in India. From 2000 onwards. I have learned a lot. I've learned how to, work, how to deal with stuff. It's a very different experience. I don't think you will get that sitting somewhere, in the US. So for me, that's been the thing. And it was tough, right? We had some tough times that we went through. And you had to be patient. There were days where you'll say, I don't know whether this is going to happen. But, you kept progressing it. And it teaches you to be patient. That's the biggest thing, right? And I always tell people, when you see things in India, if you don't know India, you can get very disillusioned. But in reality, there's a method in the madness, right? That's the word I use with people. I say, so don't, because you may think this is not right, but there are compulsions, there are reasons why it's happening in a certain way. Then once you understand that, then you try to find the solution that works for it. Right? And then you give a win-win solution that makes sense for the industry. And generally that then gets through.
There must have been times when you were very frustrated with India.
There was one, I remember there was one, I think it was a Mint conference where they asked me this question. And I answered and I said, see, we are here for the long term, and this is about, you've got to have the patience and you've got to work it through. And at the end, when I said, yeah, if you think so, and then the headline was, India chief says, frustrated with India. Luckily, minister was sitting in the audience. So he said, I know what you said.
One small supplementary. Which was more difficult, to control BP or control your BP?
I think, I think I was, actually it's probably my BP. I think I was blessed that I had a CEO in Bob Dudley who was so calm and controlled and patient. I mean, there were times when I would tell him things and he would say, Sashi, it's okay. We are here for the long term. Let's work it through. You tell me what I need to do, and he will meet with the Prime Minister, he will have that conversation and he'll say, Prime Minister, here's what we're bringing. And he built that stature, right? I mean, he was loved by everybody. He was friendly with everyone, and he would spend the time doing that. So
maybe our headline will be BP chief says he was never frustrated.
That's right. And proof is in the pudding.
Sashi, you were the person behind bringing forging a partnership with Reliance, and 2011, $7.2 billion that you got, that BP invested, was that in that year the highest FDI that India ever received. So what has it been working with Reliance, a promoter-driven company? Multinationals are not used to working with promoter-driven. What has it been? What's your experience? I also believe that you also have an exclusivity pact where you cannot go in India other than being with Reliance.
We started working with Reliance as early as 2005. That's when first Lord Brown came to India, and then we met with Mr. Ambani and his team. I'll tell you, I've been very fortunate that we picked them as the partner. So far, I can tell you in the 13 years now since we did the upstream deal, not once have we gone back and looked at the contract, right? I mean, it's not contract based. And I still remember speaking to Mr. Mukesh Ambani, and he told me, he said, Sashi, for me, any deal that I do is based on trust and relationship. He says, I need to look at your CEO in the eyes. If I feel this is the man that I want to deal with, then we have a deal. And it's been true to that. So anytime we have any issues between the two partners, we just sit face to face. I mean, I just have to make a call or a WhatsApp and say, I want to come and see you. And between him and Mr. Prasad, we resolve everything. And it's basically we look at what's the right thing for the two. So it's really worked. And as you can see, we've then grown into the retail. Now we're into EVs. So that goes on. Your question about are we exclusive? I think we are exclusive more from a relationship standpoint. The contract was, the exclusivity was for 10 years. That's expired. But there is an unwritten, what do you call, I wouldn't call it agreement, but it's an unwritten feeling that basically we are their strategic partner and they are our strategic partner. And I think both companies have actually stuck to it. And we, anytime we get approached, we say no. Anytime they get approached, he's very clear. My strategic partner is BP.
So why did you choose Reliance? How did it come about?
So for us, we wanted to do something in upstream, and they had a very large amount of acreage. So our choice was either that or ONGC, and they had almost I think it was like 100 or 200,000 square kilometers of acreage. So we signed into that with the understanding that that should give us the materiality in terms of what we're looking at.
Mr. Mukundan, another question on partnership. BP and Reliance bid for a Gujarat offshore block with ONGC, just concluded OLP round. How did this partnership come about, and why did you choose to go with ONGC?
So if you remember, in the beginning, I told you, we tried to work, with what India is looking for, what the thing is, and through the years, I've always said that the right way to do stuff is to work as partners across, and share infrastructure, because if you look at it in the US, we're strong competitors, but we all work together in the Gulf of Mexico. So, we will use Chevron's platform, Chevron will use our platform, somebody will use Shell's pipeline. And that's the way, you optimize things. And one of the things we saw here was people are always polarized. And when I was talking to the government, I always said, we should think about how do we do larger, exploration in India together. And with that, we had the conversation with ONGC, Reliance, and we agreed that, wouldn't it be a powerful combination to have the three of us together? A national oil company, the largest private company, and the most successful international company in India, all working together. And by God's grace, we got it all together, and here we are.
What's the BP's plan for India? So BP has invested already $12 billion in India, and so which are the sectors and the areas you're planning to invest, and what's the policy and what's the strategy going forward from here?
So if you look at BP, I would say we've got 4 pillars, right? Pillar number 1 is what we call resilient hydrocarbon. So we were one of the companies which early on went into renewables and looking at low carbon businesses. But at the same time, we were very clear that our strategies and not or. So because we strongly believe that there's going to be a period of time where it's going to be, you're going to have additions rather than, this thing. And then at some point you'll go to, from energy addition, you'll go to energy, substitution. So at this point, we believe it's an addition thing. So the first pillar is that we will still continue to look at oil and gas. And, here in India, we've got the gas business, which is the KG Basin. Today produces 1/3 of India's natural gas and 5% of India's crude coming out of that one single block. And we have plans to do more in that block, and we've got 2 other blocks next to it, which we will continue to explore. And, hopefully that can use the same infrastructure that we have built. So, we have a concept called ILX, which is infrastructure-led exploration. So, this kind of nicely fits in with that. The second pillar is what we call customers and products. And this is where we've got Castrol, which has been here for 20 years, for 225 years. Castrol, has been predominantly lubricants business, but now they are, moving into EV fluids. They're also getting into workshops. So there are Castrol branded workshops that we have in India. Castrol has taken a 7% interest in Key Mobility, which is another company, a startup company which is doing workshops. And, we've also into car care products. So they're kind of diversifying, doing a bunch of things for the consumer. And then you've got GeoBP, which started off with petrol and diesel. Now we've got convenience. We're looking at both compressed biogas and CNG, and then EV charging. And EV charging, now we have 500 stations, 5,000 charge points. So if you just to put it in context, all of India has 12,500 charge points. We have 5,000 of those, and these 5,000 are fast charging charge points. And the one which we just inaugurated a couple of days ago has a capacity of 480 kilowatts, which means I can take some of the top cars like a BMW i7, and you can charge it in about 18 minutes. So we're bringing all these, right? And then convenience, of course, while being, providing convenience, because the whole idea is that as people are traveling on the highways, you will get this. So that's the second pillar. Third pillar is low carbon. So in the second pillar also, what we have done is we have also taken equity in some of the startups to support them. So we've got Blue Smart and Magenta, both of which we are supporting, and then we provide them with, we build hubs for them for charging. And then the third one is what we call low carbon, which is the area where we will be looking at biofuels. We'll be looking at, what do we want to do in solar, wind, all those bits. But that's still early stages, but we've got a lot of capability outside India. And the whole idea is how do we bring that into India? So we've got a company called Lightsource BP, which we're just, acquiring 100% of it. It used to be a 50-50 joint venture. So, you'll probably see some of those looking at exploring for opportunities in India. And the last pillar, and this is very interesting because when I first started in India, I used to call it the 3 M's. I would say there's the molecules, there is the markets, and then there is the minds of the people in India, talent. And today we have set up what we call, most companies call it a global capability center. We call it a business and technology center in Pune, and we're starting one in Bangalore as well. And it started in 2020 during COVID, and today we've got close to 3,000 people and growing. And our ambition is that, quite a lot of work will get done in India, and this is not a back office. This will be front office, which means they will support all the engineering work. They will support all the operations planning out of India, digital technology, as well as business solutions. So, bringing AI, digital, everything together. And so that's going to be a huge area that's growing. And, and that could have a big portion of BP's employees working out of India.
It is said that data is the new oil. You have a powerful combination of oil and intelligent data. Tell us about your GCC playbook, the Global Business Services Center that you have in Pune. You said that you have about 3,000 people there. You have plans for another center in Bangalore. What kind of headcount growth are you looking at in India, and what kind of complex work is being done out of Pune and likely to be done out of Bangalore?
So Pune started as a global business solution center, and it was more about your accounting data coming, all your data coming in, and then that getting analyzed and then used for business solutions out of it. Then we realized there is huge talent, there's huge capability, because when you do stuff outside India, you take in a partner to do it for you, but majority of the work gets done in India. So, why should I pay dollars there and get it done in rupees in India, right? So, we also then recognize that there is huge talent, because we've got a lot of Indians coming out and working in BP across the globe, right? I mean, this is talent coming from here. So, the idea is that we will put an engineering center, and it'll be across all disciplines of our engineering, whether it's, we call it subsurface, whether it's, projects design, advanced technologies in digitals, like digital twins, etc. So we will do all the engineering over here. We will also help operations in terms of, whether it's planning of turnarounds, whether it's planning of, modifications that you're doing. So, that design work can be done in India. Digital becomes another big area, because everything is getting digitized. And, and what you're doing is you're trying to make more and more platforms and other things being unmanned, right, through digital work. So that, and then now with AI, what more can we do with it? So quite a lot of that. We probably will do some R&D in India, research and development, whether it's biofuels, whether it's some of the other areas that we can do, Castrol, all these things. So we'll set up that in India. So it's all across. I would say, our CEO will say, he probably aspires, maybe, if we get this right, 20% of the people will be in India. So today we have, including in direct and indirect, about 8,000 people. So that could potentially go to 15, 20,000.
Over what period of time, sir?
His aspiration is by the end of this decade.
India's energy landscape is changing with a shift towards cleaner fuel, slower than some people would actually want it, but it is happening. And equally, India is also one of the largest emerging energy markets. So just for a layperson to understand, where does this trajectory go in terms of traditional polluting fuels and also cleaner fuels? What's happening there? Where do we go?
For India, right? Yeah. So India is very interesting, right? Because we're growing at 7-8%. The country is growing, which means in order to fuel that, we need energy. And and if you see, all forms of energy is growing. Electricity is growing at double digits. Everything is growing. What I like in terms of what the policies are is that we're trying to do this in a very responsible manner. We also recognize that it has to be affordable. We can't suddenly sit there and say, I'm going to shut down coal and I'm going to go all renewables. So you will see that, India has got all forms of energy going. And today, I want to produce as much as I can so that I can fuel the economy. You don't want the economy to stop. So any form of energy I can produce, I will use it. Why I say it's responsible? Because, the Honorable Prime Minister has talked about how he wants to see renewables, biofuels, everything growing. Now, there is two angles to it. One is the clean energy, other one is self-sufficiency, right? I mean, if you look at when he says, I want energy justice for the people of India, which is basically saying, I want to make sure I give this thing. I don't want to be stuck with the geopolitical issues. Because today, anything happens, oil goes up, gas goes up, India gets impacted. Because, 80% of our oil is imported, almost 45-50% of our gas is imported. So the idea is that you do this in a responsible manner where you start doing more renewables, you do bio, right? And you look at ways to sequester carbon, which then will allow you to use your coal but do it more clean in a cleaner way. And oil and gas will continue, but move. If you see, he says, I want more gas, right? He's talked about taking gas from 6-7% today to 15% by 2030. So the aspiration is good, and it's coming very well. And what I've seen is that the industry has actually stepped up. So you'll see both the PSUs as well as the top 10, private companies in India. All are sitting and helping in making this happen. This is very unprecedented over here, to see that kind of support and push. And, everybody knows hydrogen is difficult, but everyone is stepping in and saying, we're going to try and work it. And, we're going to try and do what we can to make it happen. And that was a story with solar. I mean, if you look at solar over the decade, cost came down 30-40%. Today, you can produce solar for 2 to 3 cents, right? I mean, it would have been unprecedented, right, when you think about it. So I feel good that I think you will have to go through that because otherwise you'll see what happened, right? When Ukraine crisis hit, prices went crazy and there were countries which were going bankrupt. And, and we were able to stabilize because, we had a nice balance of it.
I have a related question, just global outlook. Do you see petroleum fuel continuing for, I don't know, for how long it will continue? Where do you see the world in the future?
So, we do this energy outlook. BP does this energy outlook. And as per the energy outlook, what they're saying is that today, you got about 110 million barrels equivalent of, usage every year. Yeah. That oil usage will probably come down. So the prediction is by 2035, it might be somewhere between 80 and 100. And by 2050, they think it'll be somewhere between 25 and 75. So it'll still be there, but it'll start coming down. And renewables will kind of step in, right? And gas is a similar, gas is even longer because gas needs to be there for a longer period of time. People will shift from oil, but then gas will come. And I think the trick is going to be everything and anything that can be electrified will end up getting electrified, which means almost most of the demand, almost 80 to 90% of whatever can be electrified will end up being electrified.
Sir, India is targeting to raise share of natural gas consumption to 15% from existing 6%.
Yeah.
So for that, what level of consumption you are saying that India should have, and are we doing enough or more needs to be done?
So I think your gas demand is going to grow, right? Because what you're going to see is, more and more people will start getting responsible. That means, people will move away from oil, like if it's a steel industry, etc., rather than using fuel oil, you'll say, okay, I'll use natural gas. Again, it depends on how much, what the price of gas is going to be, right? Because again, it has to be affordable for us to make it work. But you'll have 3 types of gas, right? There is exploration going on, and I think you will probably see a bit more aggressive exploration with the new licensing policy that's come out, right? Which is actually giving you all the ability to actually go and do it. No more excuses, right? Because they're saying you don't need to commit wells, you only do seismic. So what they're saying is that you do it on a step-by-step basis, because we want to see more exploration happening in India. Second bit is you got imports, LNG. And you got the PSUs who have gone and signed up with LNG projects across the globe. So that's happening. And I think the big trick is going to be, how do we fare on biogas? What can we do there, right? I mean, that could change the whole dynamics. Like if the 5,000 plants come up, right? I mean, just to give you this thing, if I have 1,000 plants that's doing, let's say, 20 tons, per day, that is equivalent of almost 7 million tons of LNG. And if you have 5,000, multiply that by 5. So all of a sudden you got 35 million tons, right? Which is huge. It changes the whole picture. So if we can get those things right, and if we can get the technologies right, it can really go.
I want to ask a question about you as a person. Where were you born? Where did you study? What took you to BP?
Interesting. So I was born in Bombay, or what used to be Bombay, right? Mumbai today. I went to St. Xavier's College there, did my undergraduate there. Then I went to US, to Los Angeles, and did my MBA. And then while I was doing my MBA, I got a job with Arco, which is Atlantic Richfield Company, which then got bought out by BP. At that point, it was more, I liked the industry. My father used to work for Exxon at one point in time in his life. So, there was always that thing. And I enjoyed engineering stuff. So for me, the whole engineering behind it, the physics behind it. And then I kind of worked across all the different parts. So I started in transportation, which was pipelines, then went to refining and marketing, then went to upstream. I worked Alaska. I did some solar in those days. I did chemicals. And in those days, these companies were very diversified. So we also had coal. So I've actually worked in coal as well. And I'll tell you a funny story. Right? My first trip to a coal mine, and our mindset is, old Hindi movies, right? Coal mine, you got thousands of people with baskets, walking down the, coal mine.
Kala Pathar.
Yeah, and I go into this. This is one of these long haul, mines inside, and I go there, and there was like 15 people.
Which country was this?
US.
US.
Right? Yeah, in Colorado. Right, we went into this underground mine, and I said, "Where are all the people?" They said, "This is it. It's only 15 guys." How can it be 15? Where's all those guys? They said, "No, we use a conveyor belt, and it just, it's all automated. The machine just keeps going back and forth, and it mines it." So it's like, you learn so much, right, when you go through these things.
India has set an ambitious target of being energy independent by 2047. What will it take to achieve that, given that we are like 86% dependent on imports for our oil, 50% for gas, over 20% for even coal? How will we get away with these dependence?
I mean, I can't predict whether we will get there or not, but what I would say is
what will it take?
Yeah, so I would say that if you look at all the initiatives that are happening, right, we're doing everything possible to get more people to come and explore in India. I mean, pretty much, most of the issues have been taken out, right, in the new, what they call OALP, the new licensing program. Hopefully that should yield something big, right? You got Andamans, you got East Coast, you got West Coast, whether we can do some of that. Second bit is renewables, right? Solar, you got mega companies looking at gigafactories for solar in India. Vast areas where we can do solar. Wind is another area, where technology is improving, larger and larger wind turbines can be put, you can repower things, etc. Then you also got bio, how do we progress bio in various ways, what can we do? So that's also an area that can be, pushed. So there is quite a lot of initiatives going on, and what gives me the confidence is that you're seeing companies stepping up and working it at large scale. And if you recall, in the third term, the Prime Minister said, he wants it to be scale, because you've got to get scope and scale to become this thing. So, and technology is changing, right? So, so we got to do, and then the other big piece which we are missing is efficiency. We can probably reduce our consumption by becoming more and more efficient. Like every time I speak to our guys for fuel and this thing, they say, oh, but cars are getting more efficient. They don't need more lubricants. We need much lesser lubricant. The interval time, change interval is changing right now. So it's similarly, if you can start doing, that will also reduce it.
You are doing some 30 MMSCMD gas from KG-D6 right now. You have a block right next to it. Two blocks. No, and then there's two OLP blocks that you've got now. So what's your outlook? How much do you see this 30 MMSCMD going to, and what kind of investments are you planning, you and Reliance both put together?
So I can see us spending a few $1 billion more. Again, it depends on success. I would say the way we are looking at it is it's a three-pronged strategy. Strategy number one is, how do I manage the existing kit? So it's, we've got 19 wells producing. How do we make sure that we manage that base? We call it base management, right? In terms of what happens is, you will see different dynamics that come out from different wells. Some wells, if water starts coming, then you got to sidetrack to other areas. Some wells, you got to think about, how do I manage the reservoir? So that's first part. Second part is, as we go through this and as we see the results of, the production. Now, now we've produced for last couple of years, 2-3 years now. Our series is already 3 years, SATS and then MJ. We'll start to see the reservoir characteristics in terms of how the reservoir is behaving, how it's getting produced. What that does is it gives us confidence in terms of other areas inside the block. So sometimes what happens is you think you will, by drilling a well here, I will, deplete this whole area. But then what we see is that there is this part which is not actually getting depleted. So we call it as infill drilling. We may have to do some infill drilling. So the first part is base management, is existing kit, you do whatever you want to do, which is fast, you can do it quickly. This one you need to get stuff, right? You may need a new wellhead, you may need a little bit of pipe, but it's faster than an exploration. So there is a whole bunch of that's happening. We're also seeing some analogy from some of the way some of these are producing to say, okay, we can probably now look at some of the areas that we were not looking at before. So that's 2. And 3 is what we call exploration, which is where we will look at these 2 blocks. We've done seismic, now we'll look at it and we'll say, okay, how do I want to, explore that? So those will be the 3. And then beyond that will be the longer term would be, what other basins do we want to go after, in OLP 10, and how we do.
Sashi, you spoke about the 3 M's, molecules, mines. I thought you missed out a 4th big M.
Which is me.
No. One more big M in the current context. Modi. Because you mentioned about Prime Minister's emphasis on, so I thought.
How instrumental has he been in?
I think he's been very, very encouraging, very supportive. Obviously, he understood what it would take to, unlock a lot of this stuff, and he got it done in such a way that it was a balance, right? It wasn't like, okay, I'm giving you everything. It's a balance. If you see, we are the only block that has a ceiling price. But, but at least it allowed us to unlock this 3 TCF of reserves producing today, a third of India's gas, everybody's happy.
Mr. Mukundan, as an industry veteran and a thought leader, what is your larger message to the youth who are entering the field, and particularly women? Because it is in this sector that we find that the representation of women is lesser than in some of the other sectors. How do you look at this whole area? And I think as you move up towards the C-suites, the representation of women goes down even further. So in the senior roles, it's even less. What is your larger message to women and youth?
Sure.
Is this male dominance only in India, or is it global in the oil industry?
It's generally global. It's more global because it's some of the work conditions are harsh, and some of it is, do you give the flexibility, for women? So I would say I've been a very strong supporter of gender diversity in general. Okay, because I strongly believe, and I always said two things. I said diversity is the people around the table. But what's more important is inclusion, which is how do I get the thoughts of the people around the table into it. And I agree with you, it's very difficult to manage it because it's not, I just hired 10 women and, we are done. You've got to then nurture it, you've got to work it. There are different reasons and different things, and you're going to be flexible. For example, if a woman's a trailing spouse and you move to another city, you don't say, okay, thank you. You did a great job, nice knowing you. We work towards saying, okay, how do we keep them still and, work back? And I have two examples in my history here where they moved out. One moved to Bangalore, another one moved to Delhi. And we said, no, you're still part of BP. They worked from there, right? And the one from Bangalore actually worked from home because we didn't have an office there. And Delhi, she worked from our office in Delhi. And what is interesting was that gave them the courage. 3 years down the road, they basically told their husbands, I'm moving to Bombay because I've got an opportunity. You better come now with me. And to their credit, the husband said, yeah, I will find something else and I'll come. So, you got to build that, and you got to nurture, and you got to keep giving that opportunity to them to actually grow and build to that level. Because it's every step is that. And you got to be flexible, right? You can't say, you got to be the way, because there are different compulsions. So you got to constantly spend the time and effort to do it. But I think the reward is incredible.
And what about the message to youngsters who want to join BP?
So I'm going to go to this thing. I've got 6 principles that I talk about, and this is my principles in my life when I have worked, which has kind of worked for me. And the first one says, when you strongly believe in something with conviction, you will find the way to do it. And you got to be there, and that's what makes it happen. Second one is, every day is going to be different, and don't think any different. You'll come on Monday saying, okay, so it's a cool day. Things can change, but no matter how it changes, if you have the conviction, there is the light at the end of the tunnel. And you will always, find a way out of it one way or the other. So that's the second principle. Third one is, never get into your head that one person can do it all. No one person can do it all. And what I've seen is, if you bring together a team which has got different thought process, which has got different, ways of doing, capability, etc., you bring them together, my God, you will see magic happening. And we've seen that. My teams, now I don't even have to say anything, right? They know what needs to be. This whole board visit was handled by people from all across India. And the board members at the end said, my God, you guys are unbelievable. How everything is working like clockwork. So, that's the third thing, no one person. Fourth one I'll say is that treat others the way you want to be treated, with respect and, and also with genuine care. The relationships you will build is incredible when you do that. Next, I would say is, as you grow up the ladder, stay grounded, be humble. Don't go. It's only a job, right? Be truthful to yourself, because that's where you will, build the respect, and support from your people. And the last one, I always tell this to everyone: there is no right way of doing the wrong thing. Don't try to find it. Be always act with fairness and integrity, because that is very important. And the day you slip on that, you're down the slippery slope, right? As long as I always tell everyone, think of it as, am I doing something which is, I'm trying to there's no right way of doing the wrong thing. So those are the 6 things I tell the youth. And then I tell the youth, don't go by our examples. I always tell them, I don't want to tell you how you should do it, because, when I was in that age, I was a lot more risk taker. I was a lot more, with time, you learn, right? We all have the experiences. It becomes difficult. So I always tell them, don't ask me for advice. You know what you need to do. Do it. Take the risk. You will learn, and you will get to the right place.
You also tell them to take less work stress, is it?
Yes.
Because that is becoming a big issue now, the mental well-being.
It is. So our principle at work is you work hard, but you also party hard, right? You have to have that balance. And the beauty is when you have a whole team working together, then people step in. So it's not one person trying to do it. And we try to give that flexibility to people.
You will walk out of the BP headquarters
Monday
evening for one last time.
Yes.
Bittersweet memories. It will be sad,
it'll be very sad. I've lived 43 years, right? we were doing a calculation. We said that's about 2/3 of my life has been BP. So I don't know what I'll do on Tuesday morning, or go home and say, my calendar is empty.
I wish you a very happy retirement, and I'm
Thank
sure
you.
you'll be obviously very active in other fields, not necessarily with BP.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for this
thank
interaction.
you, and I really enjoyed it, and
We did too.
I appreciate all of you spending the time with me. So
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.